Okay, Tov. Good morning, Ryan Mordechai. Good morning, everybody joining us and everyone that's going to watch this video in the future. Thank you for joining us every morning, Monday to Thursday. We learn at 9:15 over here in Yerushalayim. We learn Pirkei Avot according to the Chassidut. We're still in the middle of the first Mishna of the chapter 4, Perek Daled. And let me give a little bit of a summary of what we've learned up until now. We're learning what Ben Zoma said, that there are four concepts that the world looks at it in one way, and Torah looks at it from a much deeper perspective. First of all, wisdom. Second of all, strength. Third of all, wealth. And fourth is honor. In the last shiurim, we started to learn about how we can translate these four concepts into marriage and hopefully for better relationships. We talked about wisdom and the fact that who is considered a true wise person? Someone who can learn from everyone. And we talked about the fact that that viewing one's spouse, one of the most important points in doing that is through looking deeply into the person, not judging them for what we see at the onset, rather to appreciate them for who they are very deep down. Today we're going to start learning about strength, gevurah, in relationships. The joke is told that the husband and wife were arguing and they got into a fight, and the wife takes a broomstick and starts chasing the husband. He gets down underneath the couch and he's able to hide away. And she says, "Come on, get out from under the couch." So he says, "No, my dear, my word is the last word." So he's trying to show as if he's a stronger guy, but really, we all know who's the one who came out stronger. So it's not always about when we talk about having more power, it's not always the one who the physical power. It's very often it's how the person comes out to be in the stature of what they have. That is the one who has real power. In other words, a deeper power. So very often in marriage, some of the one spouse or the other likes to exercise their muscles, so to speak, and even each one wants to have the last word. But the question is, if when you have the last word, are you really going to have the upper hand? There's a phrase in Hebrew that goes something to the effect of that if you have the last word, maybe you think you won, but you have not been victorious. So you think you're on the top because you've put the other one down, but at the end of the day, have you really won? If you've made your spouse feel bad and feel like they've lost, have you really, really won? No. You've made your spouse feel bad, and that's the worst thing that you can do. So sometimes it's better to seem like the loser, but in essence, you'll really come out on the top. So when we say in the Mishna, Ezehu Gibor HaKovesh et Yitzro, who is the strong person? Someone who's truly strong is someone who's able to conquer their Yetzer, their evil inclination. Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz, one of the great Talmidim of the Maggid of Mezrich, he said a nice anecdote. He said, who is a strong person? He who conquers his own inclination, not the other guy's inclination. Sometimes people are liberal. They think that we should be more open-minded. But the other guy should be open-minded, not me. That's the way many people think. And so when there's room for work and for perfection, we should point the finger to our own selves and not to the other person whom we come in contact with. Now, this idea of Ezehu Gibor, who is a truly strong person, that's by women even more than men, because perhaps a woman is not stronger in a physical sense. So, women are much more rich and wealthy, and women are very strong in their character. Women are very accomplished and have many talents that men don't usually have. One of the characteristics that women have is the ability to be able to put themselves aside and give someone else space. That is something which may seem like a weakness, but in fact, it's one of the strongest things that a person can have. Like we know, for example, Rachel Imenu, one of our matriarchs, that she gave up of herself to be buried with Yaakov Avinu in the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, in the double cave. She gave up of her own benefit to be buried next to the tzaddik in order that she should be able, years later, to help her children that will be in need. That's a true akeret habayit. That's a true woman of the home, the main one of the home, that's able to have a positive effect with saying a good word and controlling herself, not to say something negative in order to keep the peace in the home. And that's true strength. There's a great story from Alexander the Great, and one of his missions to conquer the world, he came to a city which was only women in that city. He was going to have war with them and conquer them, and one woman walked out towards him, and she said, "Dear General, if you'll lose and we will win, then people will say, look at that, women won over him, the great general. And if you will win over us, people will say, big deal, you won over a city, a country of women." Alexander heard this argument and he left. And he said, "No one ever succeeded over me besides for this woman." In other words, with a little bit of wisdom and a lot of character, a lot of talent, then we can bring a lot of bracha to our surroundings. Now let's move on to the third point of the Mishnah. Ezehu Ashir, who is a wealthy person, Hasameach b'chelko, someone who is happy with their lot. So this brings us to the subject of fortune, to be fortunate and wealthy in our relationships. It's known that money has a limitation. It may be able to bring medicine, but it doesn't necessarily bring the refuah. The remedy is from Hashem. A home can be four walls, but it doesn't necessarily give a person a feeling of family and closeness. You have to work to do that, to have an inner joy, an inner happiness. So according to this, if one's spouse has a good parnasa, a good livelihood, that doesn't necessarily mean that the marriage will be successful. Unfortunately, a lot of people are only looking for money and success and materialism, but there's something which is much deeper, osher, a much deeper wealth. By the way, Osher is with an ayin, but Osher with an aleph is a different word in Hebrew, very similar, which means fortune, to be fortunate, to be happy, to be deeply, innerly content. So this is what the Mishnah is teaching us. That wealth does not only mean how many zeros you have after the number in your bank account. Rather, it's more a state of your soul, a state of how you feel. That's a state where a person feels whatever he needs and he's happy. This feeling becomes strengthened when you have faith in Hashem, which is concerned, which takes care of any need that you have. According to this, wealth in one's marriage is when a person is happy and content with their spouse. Obviously, with a deep emunah, with deep faith, that Hashem has presented this spouse for you, for that person. If you look at the terminology of the world, a wealthy person is someone who is never content with what he has. Like the Talmud says, we quoted it last week. If someone has $100, they want 200. If someone has 200, they want 400. He always feels that he wants to become more and better and richer. However, a truly wealthy person is someone who is content and happy with what. It's very interesting that in the subject of marriage, some people ask, how do I know that this woman or this man is for me? Let's say they've dated, let's say they've met, let's say they're happy with they admire deeply the talents and the characteristics of the other individual, but they're afraid to make the final offer, a suggestion, would you marry me? Because they're always thinking, is the grass greener on the other side? Maybe there's another individual who's even better. And my response to them is as follows. One of the greatest foundations in Judaism is emunah, faith in Hashem. Now, faith in Hashem is not just a lofty concept, something in principle. Rather, it's something which is very, very real. You can base your decisions, what you do in life, based on your level of emunah in Hashem. Now, for a regular observant Jew, it's obvious. Do you believe in Hashem? Of course. Everyone believes in Hashem, no? But when it comes to dating and marriage, I argue that perhaps this is the most important shlichut, the greatest mission from Hashem that we have, to bring two individuals together to build a home in Am Yisrael. So if we have emunah, if we have faith in general, how much more so when it comes to this most important subject in our lives, to build families. Should emunah not be the most important focal point? In practical terms, what does that mean? When you have someone who meets another person and they want to get married and they go out and they date and they meet and they discuss, And it's clear that they're not just dating just to schmooze. Rather, they're dating for a purpose. In order to build a home in Am Yisrael. Now, just because they dated once or 5 times or 10 times, it doesn't mean they're actually going to get married, obviously. Because they could decide mutually, or one of them can decide, you know what, you're a nice person, but not for me. But from the beginning, the most important, the direction has been in order that they're meeting in order to hopefully get married. Now, the more they date, the more the arrows are pointing towards, yes, we're getting closer to marriage. So that means that Hashem put 2 individuals together. The Talmud bases on Tehillim even often from 2 different parts in the world, brings 2 individuals together in order to build a home, in order to build a family. So, obviously, there is the faith in Hashem. For sure, if everything seems good, so why should they not come? Why should they not marry each other? Just because maybe there's someone else in the 8 billion people that are around, or the 16 million Jews, or the 8 million of the other the other gender. Maybe there's another person that's better fit for me. If Hashem made the 2 individuals meet, that means that there is a divine providence there. Now, if they don't get married after the 2nd or 3rd or 5th date, it's also okay. Maybe Hashem's intention of bringing them together was just to meet, and just to discuss, and to meet another person, to learn something, a good attribute, a good midah. But there's no question that we have to always be focused to try to understand what is Hashem's intention in bringing the 2 individuals together. Not always do we know, but we have to try. Now, there are some women that are married for several years. They're still not sure 100%, is this the right husband for me? And sometimes this doubt goes along the whole marriage, or a deep part into it. And a while later, they start saying, maybe I made a mistake. Is this the right person for me? Maybe I would be more fortunate with someone else. Maybe she was not mature enough when she got married. But I think that, based on what I said earlier, that the earlier someone gets married, in other words, of marriageable age, is better. A person is more sincere, is more tamim, less wise guy to try to say, I understand so much about marriage. It's better when the 2 are more naive, if you will, simple and pure. And when a person thinks into this thing and strengthens their emunah, their faith in Hashem, then be'ezrat Hashem, this will bring much more osher, sameach b'chalko, to be happy with a portion that a person has received, their portion, in other words, their spouse, and to bring out the best in them, and to realize that that this spouse is the better half of the marriage, and how fortunate you are to have your spouse to be who they are. And so I want to finish off by telling you about how much the Rabbi focuses on the great purpose, the great mission that a woman has in bringing happiness into the home. The Rabbi says at this time, the women need to know, Jewish women need to know, to contemplate into the tremendous responsibility which they have regarding their own homes. They have to know that they have the responsibility to bring warmth, light, and happiness into their home. That the home should be a truly Jewish home. It should be a warm, lit up and happy home, and this is in a great way dependent on the woman even more than the husband. This means that when we say that we have koach, power, and that's money, that's only a superficial thing. Because chas v'shalom, it can be gone to some level. God forbid, maybe the husband will be let off from his job, or something else can happen where he can lose his money. But if the source of wealth and fortune is in their joint, their partnered life, then the wealth is dependent on us. And we have the power to have true wealth, true happiness, both in marriage and in business and in our lives. Thank you very much for joining us. Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow we're going to continue to explain the fourth idea of the Mishnah, how it translates in marriage. Toda Rabba, thank you for joining us.